Alright, today's video is going to be about a special transmission that Pontiac special ordered from Ford and used in the big heavy Pontiac, specifically the 66 Pontiac Catalina. This particular one is a short shaft one. It is the exact length of one that would be used, and it has a cross member set up for like an F body or a 68 GTO. It's a 3-speed Ford transmission. What's special about these is this isn't just a regular 3-speed that came in the Mustangs. I mean, it is, but it isn't. The Mustang one came with a 299 first gear and was called a 303 Toploader. This is the same transmission, but with a few minor differences. First gear is 242 on these, so it's not a wide ratio 3-speed, it's a close ratio 3-speed. They'd be best matched with a set of 355s or a set of 373s, 390. 390 would be pretty good for these transmissions, because these were essentially drag racing transmissions. If you wanted a better transmission back in the 60s, you got a Muncie. GM would not let Pontiac buy a Ford 4-speed, even though, in my opinion, and many others' opinion, by the way, it would be a tougher transmission behind the Pontiac. But it is a 28 spline output shaft that used a very hard to find yoke that used a Pontiac U-joint. So the actual drive shaft was a Pontiac, nothing special about that. The yoke was special because the yoke used a Ford 28 spline yoke with, and instead of just the regular Mustang one, it used the Pontiac R Series U-joints. Also, this seal right here is a regular Ford seal, so whenever you're buying a seal for these transmissions, if you happen to have one, they're just, you know, the same seal that would go on a C4 or a small block top loader. They're like a couple bucks. This particular one, as I said, is set up for an F body or an A body, and that's the setup right there. These were also used in Catalinas, like I said, the bigger cars. So their transmission mount doesn't quite match up. That's what I got in my car right now. I got one off a full-size Pontiac. So I have a custom cross member going across, holding stuff together. I may use this one in the future. I got this one for $100. Now, the way it works is it's an H pattern shifter. One of these is going to be first and reverse, and the other one is going to be second and third. Now, the front of this is also special. Bearing wise, all the parts are identical to the 303 top loader used in Ford cars. But this right here, the pilot bearing diameter, the throw-up bearing diameter, and the actual splines are all set up for GM 10 spline transmission or clutch parts. So there's nothing really too special about, you know, the clutch you have to use. They made the transmission a special order. Also, here's the other kicker. I had many people wonder why there are these 4 holes in a Pontiac bell housing. I want to say 65 and up, because I don't think there's anything earlier than that with these 4 holes. As you can see, like a dust pattern right here. This is a Chevy transmission pattern. So these are the ears that would be on a Muncie or a Saginaw. Well, Saginaws are straight garbage. And these 4 holes, as you can see, were not used the entire life of this transmission bell housing. I bought this because my car was originally a 6-cylinder car, and Pontiac used the same bell housing bolt pattern for the 6-cylinder cars as the V8s. So switching to a V8, if you have a straight 6 Firebird, it wasn't a problem. All you needed to do was buy a V8. It was literally that simple. But I have a 461 cubic inch motor, and the torque is just too much for the 10.5 inch clutch. I fried the clutch in less than 8 months. I have to get another clutch. So what I did is I bought the V8 bell housing, which is mounting wise is identical to a 6-cylinder bell housing. But internally, it's slightly different and only accepts a 10.5 inch clutch, which I currently have on my car, whereas this regular full-size V8 one takes an 11 inch GM clutch. And I'm going to use a 69 Corvette big block clutch. So it's going to be 11 inch clutch and it'll use my 10 spline input shaft on the transmission, so I can still use these heavy duty Pontiac special ordered from Ford transmissions. And it says right on it, Ford. Here, you can see it a little better. There you go. Ford Motor Company, FOMOCO. And the casting numbers what you're going to use is a big old C, and it's C5AR. And C5AR will be cast into all the transmissions, regardless of whether they're long tail shaft or short tail shaft. I mean, these are bulletproof transmissions. I put mine in third gear, rev it to 3-4 grand, drop the clutch with 275 millimeter tires, and it doesn't make noise. It doesn't do anything funky. It just puts out. These are amazing transmissions. Only thing is, the drop from second to third gear is brutal. It's basically a 4-speed without a third gear. You got 1, 2, and a huge drop, and then you got 3. 3 is obviously 1, 1, just like fourth gear on a 4-speed. So let me show you how these line up. Again, this is a regular Pontiac bell housing with the 8 holes. And here you go. Let me rotate it a little bit. Anyways, here you go. The actual mounting flanges on these transmissions are straightforward. There is nothing fancy about them. The only thing fancy is the input shaft. See those holes right there? Kind of hard to see that one, but that one lines up. And if you could see it, this one right here lines up too. So there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. The 3-speed in my Pontiac is a Ford. And believe it or not, it's a stock transmission out of a 66 Pontiac Catalina. Now this particular one is out of a GTO or a Firebird or a Tempest. So if you ever crawl under a project car you're thinking of buying and it's got a 350 Pontiac or a 400 Pontiac or whatever it has in it, and it's only a 3-speed manual, but you get under it and you see these casting numbers, do not get rid of this transmission for a 4-speed. It is by far the tougher transmission, even though it has a 28 spline output shaft. So you won't be able to use a 27 spline Chevy yoke. That won't work. You just use a Ford yoke. But you can use a regular Chevy 10 spline clutch, so that works out. But like I said, I've used the crap out of my transmission. I've never even rebuilt it. All I did was replace the seal in the back so that it wouldn't leak on me, and that's literally it. That's all I've done to this transmission, and it was a mystery transmission. I don't know how many miles it had on it. I do know how many miles I got on it now from me, and it's quite a bit. And as you know, it's tough miles. I tow stuff with my car. I drag race, whenever I get a chance, and drive like a crazy maniac. So there you got it. The toughest transmission ever put in a Pontiac, in my opinion anyway, was actually a Ford special order unit. I have 3 of these. They're hard to come by, but when you do find them, people give them away for $100, $200. Usually you'll pay more for shipping because they're cast iron than you would for the actual transmission. And which also it sets you up for another option. These use a GM pilot and a GM throwout bearing and a GM clutch disc. However, the bell housing's already drilled and everything, and the length is the same as a Ford 4-speed top loader. So if you wanted a smooth shifting, bulletproof 4-speed transmission in your Pontiac, you wouldn't need anything special except for, I think McLeod sells a conversion pilot bearing, and you would just use a Ford clutch disc with a GM pressure plate. And how that would work is, and a Ford throwout bearing. So if you use the 4-speed, because Ford never sold a Pontiac 4-speed transmission, you would have to use the McLeod conversion pilot bearing, which converts, has a custom diameter, so fit the forward transmission, and use a forward throwout bearing and modify your fork so that it would still work with the pivot ball and everything else. And then you would then have a wide ratio or close ratio forward 4-speed, which I'm planning on doing in the future. Only thing is, those transmissions aren't exactly cheap. They're about the same price as a Muncie, except a lot sturdier. Well, hope you guys enjoyed this video. I mean, your opinions may vary on the different things, but to be honest, I'm the kind of guy that mixes and matches what he needs, and I just get parts where I can for as cheap as I can and get the most use out of them. And honest to God truth, these transmissions are amazing. They won't let you down.